Oh, yeah. That's a good woman right there.
My daughter's birthday. I don't know if I did that right.
Yeah.
I missed it one time. Live that down. Distracted.
Yeah, right. Happy to share.
Thank you. I take you up on that.
I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Very Western. You remember snap shirts?
Yeah.
Hello.
I have rabbits around.
Oh, yeah.
Primaries are those, rodeo.
Oh, it was last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was last week.
Last week, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Addiction issues. Love yourself. Thanks.
sit right here?
Yeah, sit
My
sit
head,
on
my
down.
head
I'll
right
adjust
in the
it.
way.
No, I'll adjust it. Yeah,
Not just the head.
I want to adjust your head.
Is that gonna work? That'll work.
I'd work.
Did you catch that leopard? Or just-
God, it's higher.
Good job.
How's your ride holding up?
Yeah, you wanted me to fire her up today, but I was busy. So I'll fire her up tomorrow. It's gonna take a while for that thing to start.
Hopefully you got radiator fluid in the radiator and no water.
Oh, she's under a canopy, and I got to cover over her.
Showtime.
Okay.
Keep the cats out of her.
So we're going to go ahead and call our workshop meeting to order, and we have a quorum of council members. I know that Nathan is double booked tonight, so hopefully he'll be able to make it. Okay, I know it is double booked. So we'll go ahead and begin workshop. This evening's council workshop is designed to review 2 items discussed at the last council meeting held on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. This format allows the council members to look at, review, ask questions about the items noted for discussion. The council cannot take any action on these items tonight. And while it is not required by state law, we will open the workshop with a time of public comment. Come on in, Nathan. If you have not yet signed in for tonight's meeting, you are invited to do so on the clipboard. If you wish to comment on an item, please make note of that. If the space is left blank, your name will not be called on for public comment. When your name is called, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Your time may not be passed or shared with anyone else. When your time is up, please be seated. After public comment, the council will begin its work. Again, the purpose of the workshop is for council members to look at, review, and ask questions about the items noted for discussion. The council cannot take any action on these items tonight, and if you are disruptive or become disorderly, you will be asked to leave. Public comment. Johnny Pitts.
The last meeting we had on the 13th, there were quite a number of people here, and I wondered why we met here. Even the superintendent was standing. I think she had 4-inch high heels, and the meeting was like over 3 hours. I got from a very reliable source that one of the city council people had emailed you about meeting at the school, and you never responded. So, is there any reason why we couldn't meet at the school when you knew that there was going to be a big meeting over there, and there were people standing out there, and what the meeting was like 4 hours? The other thing is, at the last meeting, and correct me if I am incorrect, but someone had asked how we found this AOKA people. And I believe, Angela, you said you went online and did some research, and you found that this company is in line with what the city required. That's not
No,
correct?
that is not true. I received a marketing email.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I received a marketing email from them,
Okay.
and I responded with my normal response for a small town. I said we are a small town of 271 residents. I really don't think that, I'm not sure you could really help us. And then he responded, yes, no, we can. We work for other small towns like LaGrange and Belleville and I think a couple others. I said, well, if you think those towns are small, this is considered minuscule. He said, well, we also have other towns that are like about 100 people in residence. And I said, okay, well, then send me what you have. And he did.
Okay, good, thank you for correcting me. The other thing that I want to say when I sit down is that I have never seen so much dissension in a meeting before as I saw the last time. I've come to meetings for many years and our former mayor was here and never, ever have I ever seen anything like this. It's very disappointing. You're all very professional. And Ms. Buck, I will say to you, you work for the people of the city, not for yourself, just as these city council people
I want to address the meeting, last meeting of the crowding situation. We did not know how many people were going to be at the meeting until they all arrived, and the email was about changing tonight's meeting to a different venue, and we don't seem to need that tonight. And there's rules about when that meeting gets changed. Angela, you're the person who posts the meeting. Can you share with the room the rules about that, please?
I had to post last week's agenda, this meeting's agenda on Tuesday due to going to an election law seminar. Because now with the change in the legislature, I have to post the next Tuesday's meeting on the Wednesday before. And since I wasn't going to be in office that Wednesday, I had to post it on Tuesday. So that's why it was posted on Tuesday.
Once it's posted, the venue said everything's set, and then she wasn't in office to change that. Susan?
Okay, hello, everybody. Hope you all had a good last few days in the cold. Kind of just two things, both in terms of subdivision ordinance and the building code discussion. I wanted to point something out that I just found out recently that it's kind of interesting just because we're using the Carmene's subdivision ordinance that we're looking at, and that's what we've modified. I called Jackie over there to get information about what they do on their building permits and that kind of stuff. And she told me actually they're in the process of they're redoing theirs, yeah. And so right now this is what they're using. So I brought a copy along in case and can provide that. It's a process within the city limits in lieu of application, and they are in the process of redoing all of that anyway. So I thought that was interesting. But I did talk to both the city of Carmene and Fayetteville in terms of how they take care of their building permits and their fees. I have all that information in terms of what that looks like. So I just wanted to mention that in the event that's something that's helpful for the discussion tonight. They do both take care of they do all of their permits in-house. They don't have an outside company that does that. And City of Industry, similar. They don't charge building permits right now, but they do have restrictions for any kind of building within the city. So you have to reach out to the city. I didn't get a chance to get a copy of what that looks like. But I feel like with Carmene and Fayetteville being so similar to us, that they're really good in terms of a comparison for apples to apples versus, what they have and what they're using right now. They do also both follow the building code. I think Fayetteville is 2018. What we have in place right now, which I think there was some confusion in the last time we were here, so that 2018 is what's in place. And
does that say 2015?
It says 2015, so it's IBC.
I thought it had been written for the most recent.
Yeah, so, and that's not a big deal. I mean, I think City of Brenham's still only using 2020, so that's where they're using. But I did want to point out too, though, in our language, of course, it does say also that any owner may make minor improvements and ordinary repairs on any structure without a permit as described in the code, as long as they follow the building code. So somebody made a comment about, well, we don't have building code. Well, we do. We're obligated to follow that, and our contractors as well. So the difference is we don't charge any permits or fees currently,
Question
and
to
they
you.
do. So.
Is Spencer Schneider still doing?
Yes, Spencer does Carmene, yes, and then there's a fella in the Fayetteville area. I have his name is David, and I talked to Mike Stroop at length about it at the City of Fayetteville. He's also in favor of using somebody local and doing something. They also do theirs in-house. I know there's a lot of work. He said, I can't answer a lot of questions. You have to call the city secretary. So I was like, yeah, but they have them all in the ordinance, and I've got all the permits and fees, so if that's helpful, I've got all that here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak again on the AOKA contract. First and foremost, I think that before anything is signed, that we should have a clear understanding which ordinances are going to be enforced. If those ordinances need to be updated, they should be updated before they're enforced by AOKA. And then also, I mean, just to point things out, and I'm kind of being a brat about it, but I'm not. But if you wanted to take into consideration, number one, I think that the clinic going in next door is a great idea. But if you take into consideration that this is something that AOKA could then come back and, do regulations against us and say, hey, you're not in compliance with this. FAA regulations for any buildings that are near a helipad, they recommend at least 66 feet from the edge of the helipad, and you're at 56 from one corner of where it's marked off for the new building, and it's actually only 57 feet to the corner of the EMS building. So you're already outside of FAA regulations for medical use helipad. So I'm just saying that is something that AOKA could come back at us and get money from us. I don't like the idea of somebody being able to come in and say, hey, oh, by the way, I know it's not the city enforcing this, but we're enforcing this because this is an ordinance that you have on the books. And they're just it's pass-through money, yes. The money y'all aren't charging us the money, but AOKA is, and they're making money on this. For them, it's a money-making scheme. There are a lot of ordinances on the books that are so completely outdated, unless we absolutely say, hey, these are the ones that we want them to enforce. This has been updated to meet what we actually need. I don't think it's smart to go forward with AOKA.
Ned?
Thank you. I agree with Kathy on AOKA. It's wholly unnecessary here. We're not in a position in this tiny town to impose significant fees on people to comply with ordinances. And I think people are pretty diligent about their homes and intend to be safe. But I think my comments mostly are about subdivision ordinance, because a lot of folks are here for AOKA. We really don't need a land use ordinance today. We are too small with extremely limited development. We have one house in the entire city limits. Hey, how are you? We've survived for 150 years without it. I think we'll survive for another 150 without it. But we absolutely don't need any city action that discourages improvements to land, homes, garages, sheds, carports, barns. That's counterproductive. So the city has no capacity to add value. There's no capacity in this group to add value to someone's construction project on their own. You guys aren't in construction. You're not in development. There's nothing added by council in that discussion. So there's no value in there. The city already controls growth. You guys cannot overlook this. You already control growth with all the hype and the fear factor of some subdivider coming in and dropping a bunch of homes in. You already limit growth through water and sewer. You cannot add a bunch of homes here. Okay, there's no need to put this in place to control subdivision development. If you have been convinced, City Council, if you have been convinced that this ordinance is necessary, absolutely necessary, then proceed with it, okay? But only after you absolutely get it right. If you're going to limit people's rights to exercise rights on their property, you absolutely must get it right. This is not something you can pass and pass it so that you can see what's in it, as someone famously said a few years ago. Okay? Let's roll up our sleeves and spend the next few months talking about this. We had a very substantive discussion a couple of weeks ago after the council meeting. We visited about some of the details of this ordinance. There clearly were gaps in it, okay? There's more gaps in it. That was a very hurried review that I did to provide my comments. We need to dive into this and take this very seriously. So please think about that. And we need to spend a lot of time in the ordinance on the design and construction standards at the back, which we didn't get to because we were already at 10:30 or 10:45. Yeah, so there are concrete streets and curbs in there. It's kind of a high bar in light of everything else in the city. So anyway, point that out as just one gap. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Barbie? Yes, ma'am. So I just have a few questions. These are just general questions to get some clarification. How many ordinances do we currently have? And if you don't need to answer it right now, but these are just questions that I wanted to put on the record. How many ordinances do we currently have? Who was enforcing them prior in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years? Was there any enforcement? Also, when was the last time they were updated? And then also, is AOKA going to be part of updating the subdivision ordinances? And if so, I think there's a conflict of interest. That's just me.
Thank you. Alicia?
This meeting today is no longer about just a vendor or a subdivision ordinance. It's actually about lawful process, ethical governance, and abuse of public authority. The last meeting, the mayor audited attendees based on where they live and implied that only downtown residents, not business owners or other property holders, had viewpoints that mattered. Filtering voices based on residency or status is viewpoint discrimination, and it violates First Amendment protections and chills productive conversations. You do not need to live downtown to have a standing on land use, subdivision, or property value. Auditing speakers to undermine credibility is not leadership, and it's actually not allowed. For our council members, you're not permitted to blindly follow your leadership out of fear, pressure, or lack of understanding. Approving contracts or ordinances you don't fully understand is grossly negligent governance and not good community participation. On AOKA, you're being asked to outsource land use judgment to a third-party platform with no local accountability, no resident-level public views, and no transparent data showing improved community outcomes. Every endorsement tied to AOKA Online comes from decision makers, not from the people who live under the results. And that's a red flag. When municipal vendors fail, they are rarely fired publicly. They're exited quietly. The absence of public failure is not proof of success, it's actually proof of opacity. If this model worked for communities, residents would be their loudest advocates online, and they're not. Now to the ordinance. As drafted currently, it creates disparate impact. It disproportionately harms small landowners, the poorest community members, legacy families, and inherited property owners, while insulating those with capital and consultants. That violates equal protection and basic land use standards. This ordinance injects uncertainty, delay, and costs, three forces that devalue existing real estate and again slows the value of our growing community. Finally, the only one vendor excuse failure, that is one to not find alternatives and it does not remove your obligation to vet at least three. AOKA is not unique. Comparable firms include Kimley Horn, Friesen Nichols, Half Associates, and Hewitt Zollers. You're not choosing AOKA because there are no alternatives. You're choosing it because it was the first marketing email you received. Being right in our leadership is not the same as being accountable. And silence is not neutrality, it's complacency. Because what's happening right now felt and feels unethical, not legal, and not worthy of the leadership Burton deserves.
Melinda?
I'm just here to listen.
Oh, okay. Didn't see that. I didn't understand what that word was. Okay. It's my writing. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move into that workshop, and let's council start with the subdivision updates. You received another red line pack. Those updates. Paul, are you okay since me walking through where they were?
Sure.
Because I.
Kind of a team effort anyway, so yeah.
So on page 2 at the bottom, there's 2 new paragraphs inserted. 2 new paragraphs inserted there in red. those, is what Susan lifted up, to be included in the February 2025, version. And so I pulled those back from, the 2025 and put them in there. And so, that, I think, addresses that concern about the older, things on the plat. But those were the exact words that she sent in 2025 that we could add it back in. On page 3, partway down, I had to add a definition for a drainage plan, just so that was clear, because it was mentioned later in, and we'll see that later on in the document as well. But that was per recommendation from the AOKA review, and then I took the definition of that from the Washington County Subdivision ordinance or plan, what the county uses. Page 4, I had to add more definitions in as well because of a comment that was received later about roads, I think, or something. Anyway, I had to, it was tied to phasing in a larger subdivision. How would we handle a phase in? And using the definition from the county subdivision, I had to go back and put in the definitions. So that's those definitions are tied to the phasing, and that's on page 25. We'll get to that there. Also added in, as I was flipping through the Washington County subdivision guidelines, you'll see that on page 5, there's another new definition there for that third consanguinity, just so that people are clear and understand what that is in there as well. Any questions thus far? Anything else y'all are seeing thus far? Go to page 8. And so you'll see the new there at in item number 5, and that was per workshop comments. So the ETJ was removed from that line. Page 9, item 2 is just adding the allowance of a digital copy. Comments there, and that's per workshop comments as well as AOKA capabilities. They can handle that digital. We just opened it for something a little bit bigger. I also want to pause right here. Joseph, I'm sorry, I should have introduced you here at the table. So this is Joseph Hayes. He is the city attorney, and he's reviewed this document prior. These are our red lines that we've added through just most recently. But he is here just for advice and counsel as we continue even with the contract negotiation, or talk about that as well. Do you want to meet everybody around the table?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So this is
Paul, nice to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Jeff Ecker.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Lacey Sizzle.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm just
Oh, absolutely.
lots going on up here. And so the next addition that was added in is on page 18, and that was per workshop discussion. So we just redlined all of that. I just about putting a drainage area and park together is just not a good idea. Right, because I mean, where we're using Carmine ordinance, they do that over there.
Right.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go right over that last time.
Not,
That bridge is all.
yeah, I'm not thrilled with the park in the drainage, so works for them, but not here. Page 22, Kind of stuck there on what else to add, but that was where discussion about a 100-year floodplain would go in, and that was per AOKA's review that we needed to have something in there. So that's still an area to work on, is mentioning that 100-year floodplain. Although I think most of the floodplain, correct me, Angela, the floodplain, since you also have the floodplain director hat that you wear, the floodplains are located along
the creek bed.
all the creek beds. And so it'd be just the 2 creeks here in town, Indian Creek
Otherwise, most of the city is.
on a hill. And the second creek bed is actually back outside the city limits this way, but otherwise it's just Indian Creek. And we are at the top of the watershed of Mill Creek. So when we get rain here, it eventually makes its way to Sealy, and they know about it. And Belleville, and they all know about it.
They like to blame us.
Can't help it, downhill.
At the bottom of 22, item J, what I did, again, this was per AOKA review, I believe, the city's flood drainage prevention. It's actually an ordinance, and so that's been inserted. It's a ordinance that was passed May 23rd of 2011. And then I added at the end of that, most notably, the 100-year floodplain. Again, but we have to go back up and identify where that is. But we do have the floodplain maps here in the drawer. But page 24, just continue to put that in front of you, because as this, just to how big lots are, to if they want to go to an on-site septic or require them to hook the public water. I think that is something we'll have to hold side by side with our water sewer directions as well. Bottom of page 24. So this is in terms of drainage. This is what I pulled from Washington County. I'm not sure how much more needs to be added. We do not have in here anything required for, and that was something I think John maybe brought up, that there's no water detention. Is there water detention in any large development addressed adequately? So we don't have a water detention requirement in here. And her question was, the school has none. There's no water retention down there, at least not that we can see or know about. But
It goes downhill.
yeah, no, it dumps into the creek. Yeah.
So there's no retention.
Well, it would
Natural.
just keep going. Well, yeah, it just keeps going. But any large development with water retention.
Is that or detention? Does that mean the those large open
right.
lowered areas?
Like they had,
It could
they used
be-
to fill up and then they overflow and then that's no longer employed.
It could be those. It could be the the beautiful tanks of water, ponds of water out in front of subdivisions are also.
Right, where they pump the water out, you see that, declaration, that's water detention. But certain land in Houston is required for so many people that live on so many acres to have a retention pond.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Pretty flat. Yeah.
Yeah,
we don't have that here.
I drive through Tomball every day, and they're everywhere.
So
Go ahead.
yeah.
And what they do is they fill up and then overflow in the next rain. So some retention ponds are good, some are not, depending on the amount.
Some are dry.
How it rains.
No matter how much it rains.
But then with those the man-made retention things, I walked by one in a city, and there was no ladder to get out. I mean, once you're in, you're in. There's no getting out of there. If you fall in, there was no fence around it. So to ask about, to insert water detention and have something like that, the follow-up is it's just not a hole in the ground with a boardwalk around it because kids will jump in and there's no way to get out.
Yeah.
Except to crawl through the pipes or be pushed through the pipes with water. So there's some concerns there.
Well, our topography is so different than other places.
Sure.
To deal with.
Item P on 25, that was added in from the last go round as well, from last 2 weeks ago. To each lot is connected to a sanitary sewer system. That's per our own ordinance, with no septic tank system permitted with anything new. Again, there's only one, I think, street in town that does not have it's on the wastewater line, only because it's rock, right? And that's in the Navasota. That's what you mentioned.
Solid rock up that way.
So the last, I think anyway. Q there, it's also per workshop discussion. And I pulled the words out of the failed February 25 subdivision. So all those words there at Q they need to end with the city's water authority and the TCEQ. Portable water system shall additionally provide fire protection per the TCEQ and National Fire Protection Standards. I think that's all that we needed to add in. And taking care of all that other stuff. But that provides for making sure that there's a fire system in their portable water for fire hydrants. And we use the 2025 subdivision version had a different name for the fire protection code. We fall under this National Fire Protection Standard. That's what the city of Burton uses, not the other one. There's two of them. Is that right, Nathan?
I think so on that. We have a meeting later and ask.
Well, I have the binder. It's National Fire Protection Standards, but I think I've been told there's two. So.
We just have to follow the national standards, right?
Well, just whatever the red book is they gave me, whatever copy they gave me, that's the one we follow. At the bottom, we start the phased subdivisions. It's letter S. And this came also per the AOKA review and workshop discussion. So this is the phased in on page 26. All of that's taken straight out of Washington County's book. And when I did that in number 4, you'll see the layout and with the proposed arterials, thoroughfares, and collector roads. And those need to be defined. And so that's where we go back to the definitions so you understand what each type of road is going through. Any questions? I'm wondering, and Joseph, so if it's a phased-in subdivision, it's that bottom paragraph. When a subdivision is platted and developed in phases, each individual phase must stand alone and be capable of functioning independently with respect to utilities, drainage, flood detention, and access. Is there, and it may be that we've tucked it in here as well, to put a limit on how many years to develop, or do you just leave it? What do other cities do?
For that, it's really just so that there's phasing control.
Okay.
Really, that's really going to be applicable if you were building this city from the scratch, because you don't want to do all the replatting of it, like just utility lines, and then go in and try to do something else after.
Right.
So it makes sense to try to do everything at first. So then, whenever you're done with that section, it's done. People can move in. People can start living there. There's no legal outline, like if you're phasing this in on like a 10-year period. There's yeah, there's no requirements that has to be for a certain amount of time. It's whatever the city's comfortable with, as long as everyone's properly noticed and published, all the dates.
Right,
Yeah, as long as everyone knows, it's fine.
okay. And so, I mean, it came out, there might be a better version that's pulled from Washington County, because that's what you all approved for the ETJ. And so, that would match what is in the the same rules for the ETJ. Page 27, the new item is just to clarify, it's a 2-year maintenance period, not a 1 year. The county was going to a 2-year maintenance because it takes longer than 1 year to grow grass, and that's per workshop discussion. And then page 28, also that clarifies that per workshop discussion is that 2 years.
So you've got the, his and his taken out. Got some more in there, I think, for the initial one. That, then we're taking all the his, okay, I found some more in here, huh?
No, it was just this one here.
Oh, gotcha, okay, yeah. Okay.
So Joseph, a lot of the additions are to match a lot of what is going to be proposed for the ETJ change, for our ETJ. So I sat in on the county workshop because they're reworking their subdivision ordinance as well, and pulled some of those things in, like the flag lots and those things would then match what's going on in the ETJ.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. Most things the city can do in the city limits, you can also do in the ETJ, not everything. Zoning, which this ordinance is not, zoning can't go in the ETJ, and there are a couple of other things. But for most land use items, if you want to be uniform across the board, it's okay.
Right?
Excuse me, zoning is not applicable in ETJ?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know that, okay. I should know that.
You can't do zoning without a land division.
Okay, I'm just curious.
The other thing that I learned at county is, and maybe y'all can help, you can help clarify that. In the ETJ, here in Washington County, the rule is the stronger rules apply in the ETJ. So as long as we have no rules, the county runs the ETJ. If our rules are stronger than the county's, then the city of Burton rules apply in the ETJ. That's the way it works for the city of Brenham. You had questions about that last year, I remember. So in the city of Brenham, in their ETJ, the city of Brenham rules apply in the ETJ because they're stronger than the counties.
Stronger.
Does that mean, yeah, like how? Like, does that mean more?
More restrictive.
How-
More
who does-
restrictive, because the city of Brenham is more restrictive than the county.
Who determines that?
City of Brenham.
Council, right?
Oh, the city council of Vernon decided.
Now, the county controls our ETJ, and that's all.
Right, that's the way it's always been. Yeah. We didn't change it.
But so the stronger one rules.
And we in the city council decides.
That's right. In our city limits.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
It's kind of, if we go back and look at the initial assessment stuff, I mean, it's still on the areas of improvement with the AOKA review. We've done grammar, boundary, corrected some of that, phasing. So this was the review, Joseph, the advice on phasing that AOKA offered. The term phasing is not mentioned within the context that something would be necessary. Should there be a sizable subdivision, it's important that the development can be built in phases rather than all at once. Should there be market volatility when it comes to housing, there may not be a guarantee that development would continue. Phasing allows the developer to provide the necessary improvements as they go along in stages. It provides an insurance clause for the cities should the development not be seen to. So the AOKA, this engineer or city planner, he was a city planner, Provides an insurance clause for the cities, should the development not be seen to fruition, there would not be empty infrastructure not corresponding to a property. That's what he added in.
Yeah, that's pretty standard, especially, a lot of these agreements are for, like, these large developers to come in, because you have that risk of, hey, they're gonna buy enough for
Right.
50 lots, but they'll build 10 and then sell off the rest and just leave it as junk. This helps, and also the developers like this as well, because it just makes sure everyone's on the same page as what's going to happen. This is the plan, these are the timelines for it. They're requiring insurance, for like performance bonds for these developments. That's 100% regular.
Okay, so we didn't mention any of that. So where would we find information about how to require bonds?
Oh, that's just the insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll call different things, and they have a couple different options as to how they want to do it. But the most common is they'll take out a bond with the surety company, and it has very set rules on when and how it will become effective. So it's basically just like insurance, it just has a different name.
Okay. Another item that we didn't follow up last time. So we used the Carmine subdivision ordinance for that, and
As
it
a
was
basis.
as the basis. And it was mayor or designee, and so the comment was that there is also a mention of approval by mayor or designee compared to that by city council. And I would recommend either providing the reason for the difference in executive decision compared to judicial or legislative. So is there, y'all went with Carmine, is there a particular reason specifically there that y'all left that in or like that, or?
It was just, I think we liked it, that was the situation that we thought was acceptable, and, we included that in there, but we discussed it as far as that goes.
I think the plat still has to come to council. I mean, whatever that is coming in still has to go to council. But it's all of the little things all the way through. So it could be the mayor, it could be city secretary, city planner, company, third party contractor, anyway,
So there's a lot of.
latitude.
Yeah.
Are y'all comfortable with the way that works, or do y'all want to?
Narrow it down a bit.
I mean, I think I'm okay with that. I think depending on what's going on and who's here, I think it's a smart idea to have options.
Okay.
Because if we move to changing that language to have council approval, then y'all would be are y'all game to meet twice a month or every week, or, I mean, it kind of frees it up, right? So that y'all don't have to report in twice a month or something. I think Brennan meets how often every 2 weeks, every week.
A lot more
So,
we did.
yeah, a lot more control. So is that, we need to put in a reason why we would use that language? Would it be, convenience? It would make it it would make it quicker for anybody wanting to develop, right? They wouldn't have to wait a month or get that in. So convenience.
Well, we can narrow it down to, we have a certain time per, we're not meeting every 2 weeks. So we've got to make that work with our meeting schedule, so.
So because council meets once a month
We can adjust that to once a month
for convenience.
as opposed to every other week.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Choose
2 weeks is not going to make a difference on a large
No,
subdivision.
not
Yeah,
for-
you're not starting tomorrow.
No. So they can.
So do y'all want
Once a month.
just that once a month?
Yeah.
They come to council, right? But I mean, for all these other little decisions, for convenience. How do you, I guess I heard one thing and then the direction changed. Help me.
Well, all these things are important. We have to address them. But can we spread it out so we don't have to be here every other week? You know, I mean,
So you're saying that as the subdivision
evolves,
progresses, they will need to get approval on different aspects of it? Is that what you're saying? Or?
Well, if it's a large, and this could just be a small, you know, mom and pop dividing, giving to the kids, and then that would just come to council, right? But anything large development, 5, 10, 15 houses, then for convenience, I mean, they'll still have to come and have everything approved here. And actually, it would be layers, wouldn't it? Because we would have to have somebody else with knowledge about how all this is laid out. Look at that. So
and
it'd be-
it's also not just one
Mhm.
development, but another one right next to it. There might be more than one going on.
So you would have, it would be brought to mayor or designee, and then we could send it off to a third-party contractor to look at, to review, and then bring back to council for you all to look at and have questions.
I think that's a good way to do it.
Because they would know better how to read all that. It's not the mayor is making anything, it's just sending it to a third party that is more knowledgeable about that particular thing. But it would just be, I mean, I think in Fayetteville, I think that was city secretary. It's city secretary all the way through city secretary in
Are you
in
familiar?
there.
Are you familiar with that?
City of Fayetteville, yeah, it has all of their.
It's the city secretary does it all there, all of it. So, I mean, it could be,
Or the mayor or city employee, could be the secretary and employee, but
well, but all that we're all just gonna look at it and go,
Yeah.
well, third party.
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
but
but you're saying that it comes here first, and then we all have to send it to
to be looked
the
at.
third party.
Yeah, so it doesn't become plans are plopped down in front of you and everybody looks at it and goes, well, I don't know, I guess that's a good thing, because that's not the way, nobody around this table knows how to read those, which is how we end up with stormwater and wastewater system. So, I mean, it just, yeah. But we have to outsource that kind of thing. So, anyway. Okay. So just because convenience and expertise, I can use those two words. Knowledge and expertise.
That would get us in the right
Someone
direction.
that doesn't have a conflict of interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes, maybe it would be someone, like if there's someone qualified on council, they could be the designee.
Well,
To lead on them.
you're gonna need
And
somebody
councils
with
can
some
always,
kind of,
if it
Yeah, it's
changes,
gonna change,
you
it's
know,
gonna change.
but you're gonna need somebody on council with that kind of knowledge is gonna give them approval to
Right, who you designate to give that approval to.
that liability that goes with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Yeah,
and
if this
again,
is a workshop,
Yeah, but we
yeah,
have
no,
questions.
we're still working here at the table. We can find out in the gallery, please, thank you. So,
She doesn't give a shit.
thank you, Paul. So a phrase that would be convenience, knowledge, and expertise would be well enough.
So I think so.
And
Write
that's
that in
common practice for most cities of the size. Bigger ones will narrow that down from like mayor designee to like the city engineer or the public works director, whoever they have on staff who can actually look at these all day.
Right.
But yeah, for cities that can't, it almost always gonna go to something like an AOKA or a Build Safe, or I mean, there's tons around here.
Right.
Yeah, and they're the ones who do the actual review. And phrasing it this way just gives the city the leeway to make those changes. Like, say, for example, you did with AOKA, if you have his mayor designee, then if you fire them and replace them with someone else, you wouldn't have to go back and redo the whole
Write it all
thing.
in.
Mhm, exactly.
Good to know. Okay, Storm drainage, again, and that's probably where we need to ask an expert on this 100-year stuff, because that's where that came from. I did find some things to plug in, but there's others that just don't have that. I don't know where to pull that. And it's just please consult further in terms of inclusion, discussing stormwater drainage, about where that would go. So we would have to consult on that. And then the replatting. While the concept of a replat is mentioned a handful of times within the document, the steps toward this process should also be outlined. At this time, I would recommend further inclusion after discussing final plat. And so that, again, would have to go for expert wording for that. In terms of the design and construction standards, that is beyond. That's somebody. That's for somebody else. That's an engineer. And I did ask a Bevco engineer who lived in Carmine about these, and he said I wouldn't use them because they've never been put to use. Carmine has never put their subdivision ordinance to use. And so these design and construction standards, when passed, he wasn't even familiar with them, so.
You know something?
I was just going to say, the city of Snook is going through something very similar with their subdivision that's going in. I don't even know if they're a city, township, whatever they are. I don't know if any of that information would be more
So we
useful
started
than
with,
farming.
we started with the Snook one, and that was not well received.
Okay.
We started with Snook, because Snook used to be the size of Burton, and then grew to the size
Okay, I was
that
just
it is.
curious,
Yeah, no,
'cause I know
we
that they're
can-
going through that.
We can sure visit with their design standards and see what they have.
They're very close to us.
They were.
Yeah, bigger,
Yeah.
bigger.
They were like that. Okay.
But you still-
do they maybe have insight?
So we'll,
Snook only has a boot box.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll still need to pull design standards from maybe Snook and go from there. Is there anything else?
I know one of the things that was mentioned by one of the committee members was we don't need curbs in Burton. This is a country town. There's no need for curbs. And we would like ditches to be ditches.
So it's a decision between, and that was, and it was a lot of ditches and something. That was something the county was talking about as well, and they were wanting to,
County's willing to work with drainage?
we can, see what's in there. This is what these are their county design standards proposed. That's what's going through.
That's what they're talking about now, the change to.
If I may, just one observation. If you put in curbs and gutters and you have storm sewer lines that your contractors put into a subdivision, you have to have a storm sewer line for it to go into to drain. I don't think we have that. So you might want to think about this is the kind of stuff we've got to give deeper thought to.
So I think the county had, it was a slide he had up, and but it was the bar ditches, I think is what most of the subdivisions are using out towards Chapel Hill. But it's a bar ditch situation. And so I don't think we mentioned curbs and gutters here. I'm not sure what's in the design standards.
It's in the design standards on the first or second page.
So no curbs. And okay, we'll look at the bar ditches instead. And the design standards. Is that okay, council? And not the cement curbs? No curbs. The only place we do have, where we do have curbs, that's where our problem is over by the school. No, by the school. But those are new, and then by the bank, we do, because you have to.
Well, that's the only way I got water to move where it needed to go in my house was curbs.
Right.
To get to the street then instead of under our house.
Right. Anything else?
You're saying bar, B-A-R.
Bar, that's what I hear. Is that right? Bar, B-A-R ditches, bar ditches?
No, I can actually tell you.
Okay, yeah, you live with curbs.
Yeah.
I wish I could find it. Maybe it's in the design standards.
Okay.
Channels and ditches, bridges and culverts.
That's number one. Curbs.
And that's on Carmine. I'm in the county one. It's all engineer language. Streets and I don't know. Finding it would be $25, $35, no. I'm not finding it in either one of those, but it's a bar ditch. It's two words that go to, it's a bar ditch, and that's probably what we'll go with versus the curb, that's what I'm hearing. It's a bar ditch, so I'll make sure that's included. In terms of moving forward, we're kind of at a halt on this until we get some more research, in on, changing that language to clarify that, but we are gonna need consult on, storm drainage replatting. But we've had, Joseph review this, before we added all the red lines. We had Joseph review it, it's been reviewed by a, city planner.
The variances, no problem with that.
No, variances are fairly common. The tricky part of variances is in their application, not in the way it's written. You'll make sure once it's adopted that you're doing it in the same way, because you might get there's no precedent when it comes to variances in the sense that it's all the facts are unique to that specific property. So just because something is approved in that particular variance doesn't mean it has to be approved in future variances. So the city will need to just review every single fact. Yeah.
Basis, okay.
Exactly.
Everyone. And the exceptions, looks like we've got a few on the red lines, and that's not all. This has been approved by the lawyer too.
He hasn't seen the red line.
Oh, okay.
He's looking at it.
I was just, yes, page 6. These are real important, exceptions and variances that allow people to, ask a question about what the law is and what we can change it to if possibly come to council with exceptions.
Oh, yes. Both of those would already, like the two items that were added, 3 and 4, those would have already been effective because they're actually in state law.
Okay.
So it's great that you're putting it here to make it clear so someone doesn't have to do the research. But yeah, those are both set in state law, so it lines up well.
Good. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, just the setbacks setbacks are set up by individual every time we bring a set of plans and plats to the city, they're approved and then they're adjusted as per each one. In other words, They're not set in stone, but they are brought to the council for each one of the subdivision that is brought to us. In other words, we have an idea of what the person wants to do, then we can discuss it on the council to make it work. That's how I see it. The lawyers approved it apparently.
So Joseph, we've been working for quite some time on the subdivision ordinance. What we're finding is it was recommended in the comp plan, right, in 2000, and just haven't got there as a city. I've been attending county court meetings, the county commissioners meetings over in Burnham almost every week. Whenever I get over there, I'm there. And the number of subdivisions being brought before the commissioner's court is astounding every month. Because Chapel Hill's growing, there's land being divided up here in the Burton School District, and that is growing. So to have that growth coming in the area, and I'm not an ostrich about it because I know it's out there, because I hear about it, see it, drive through Chapel Hill and go, wow, that wasn't there. Best practice advice for cities without a subdivision ordinance, or
I mean, without a subdivision ordinance, it's a lot harder to control that growth when it does happen. I mean, that really is the pros and cons here. Some cities don't have SDOs, some do. Some couple that with zoning, some don't. And of course, I mean, everyone has opinions on it. Like, I'm not here to say what's right and what's not. Because for every community, they're going to have to make that decision over how much, like what are they trying to protect? What are their goals as a community? But yeah, when you don't have any kind of subdivision ordinance, then when a big developer comes in and buys a bunch of land, they kind of set what they want to do. And especially these days with cities, you can't forcibly annex property anymore. There are a lot of limits on what cities can do. So there are a lot fewer sticks. Cities used to be able to have both a stick and a carrot when it comes to working with developers. Now you really only have carrots. So subdivision ordinance is about the bare minimum you can do to set those rules, if the rules are what you are wanting to set in place, and if you think the city is going to grow in a way that they're necessary. That's a long way of saying it, but yes.
and the only other way that we currently can control growth here is water and sewer. And right now we have no meters to give. Once water well number 5 is functional, then we have 27 meters, and then we need booster pumps, and that will really open us to a lot more growth at that point in time. So we're limited now, but not always. But who pays for that infrastructure upgrade? If it's not spelled out in a subdivision ordinance, does the city have to go back and upgrade the water sewer ordinance so that any new development needs to pay for that upgrade, or pay half of that upgrade, or?
No, you won't have to go back in your ordinances and update the prior ones. By law, you're not required to provide new service to new income people. There are some exceptions to that, and we can get into those details. But generally, a city isn't required to automatically add those new property owners to your water utility. So you do have the ability there to control it somewhat and lay out the development. I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought.
But we don't, as a city, we don't even, I mean, if this building back here went in without anybody here knowing about it until we heard the noise, right? And so we did go over and had to ask, are you going to put in utilities? No, we don't need utilities. It's just a storage building. But so sometimes we don't even know what's going on if they don't need water, sewer, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then even the vet clinic, when they opened here in town, they kindly brought the plans. We had no say. You could just look at the pictures. That's it.
Yeah, I would say the bare minimum of whatever you want to do, just having something, even if you aren't setting any restrictions, having something where you do require notice does help. So that way the city's actually aware of something before it becomes a problem. Because yeah, you don't want someone digging somewhere where there is a water utility line and they hit it and it shuts off the water for who knows how long. And then yeah, as far as payments are concerned, like who will pay for that? When the developer comes in with these development plans and they come in with a big plat, they want to get that subdivided, then that'll actually be a negotiation with the city. The city will usually enter into some sort of development agreement with them, and generally the developer is going to pay all those costs.
With or without a subdivision?
Correct, but without a subdivision, then they have a bit more leeway and.
The developer has power.
Correct, yeah, they can cut corners, they can build stuff to their standards, as long as they meet like state level requirements. The state level requirements are pretty bare minimum. Really, it's gonna be TCEQ and a few other things. And for the most part, they're gonna be able to do it.
But the city is not, I mean, they can't make us build infrastructure.
Correct, yeah, you won't be required to build anything else out.
All we have to do is say no.
Mhm. Exactly, yeah, so what they would do if, so for example, someone buys a bunch of property and they want to put in a new development. If the city says, no, we don't have the water capacity right now to serve that, then what they can do at that point is they'll get that in writing from the city, and then they can go to the PUC, the public utility, and ask for permission. It's like, hey, the local provider can't do this. Can we start up our own utility? Can we create a MUD? Can we, there'll be options.
But creating a MUD within the city limits, we are the public water system. I think we have, as the public water system, that right. I don't.
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
MUD within the city limits.
Unless specifically within city limits, that does happen, but it is something, I'll have to double check this part, that is something the city would have to consider. So if the city didn't want to allow that, then they would have to go through some other avenues.
If you have
to
a
find-
MUD with being able to drill their own well and pull up as much water as they want, no oversight, your drop contingency plans would not apply, and so you've got the nice green subdivision, while the rest of us are on the drop contingency plan. It's kind of,
Possibly. I mean,
not fair.
yeah.
The MUD has to make a profit. The city doesn't.
It's a nonprofit.
So a MUD district is,
I mean, there's a lot of things, I hate to get too far down a road of these catastrophic things that can happen. Not to say it couldn't, but it also says that a home within the city limits has to be on the city water, right? So they can't do it, right?
and the wastewater.
Well, once the city says no to that, then they can go to the PUC and ask for special allowances to do other things. So generally, the answer is yes. The city could just say no, but it's not 100% certain that they would have no recourse after that.
It's very expensive.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the other part of that is, plus depending on how much land they have, would it make,
We know how much it costs to put in a water well.
yeah,
There's-
yeah.
I could not imagine.
Really cost
The mud would be ridiculous.
Could not imagine.
Barbie, do you have?
I just looked it up real quick. It says generally, MUDs are nonprofit.
MUDs are nonprofit, but it's odd in the sense, like MUDs kind of exist for private developers. They weren't a thing 50, 60 years ago. Instead, it was mostly public utilities. So now, when developers come in, they build new things. They're outside the city limits generally, so they don't have to pay a lot of city fees. And they build their own MUDs, and they enter into an agreement with the MUD. The MUD will actually have an election to approve that agreement, but the only voter for the MUD is the developer who owns that property. So it's nonprofit, but it's essentially a one-man race. And then once they have that agreement in place, then the MUD is basically a way for the developer to recoup a lot of those infrastructure costs, essentially over the years. So that's why if a city does enter into a developer agreement with one of those, there's usually rules that says the city can't annex that property until 20 or 30 years, so that way the developer has made all their money. So it is technically nonprofit, but they use that to make profit.
And just for clarification purposes, if you have the answer for this, if a developer does come in and create a MUD district and that's how they're able to go forward with it, no one else in the city would be affected by that mud or have to pay into that mud. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Only the people in
Correct,
that
yeah,
subdivision.
for a mud, it would be whoever lives within the
That district.
boundaries of
Yeah.
that mud, would have to pay additional property taxes to the mud.
Okay.
But it wouldn't affect anyone living outside of it, you are right.
But the city would still benefit from the property taxes of these new residents, correct? They would be paying into the city's coffers for property taxes?
Yes, for that, they would be, if you lived in the mud, you would pay property taxes to the mud, and if you also lived in the city, you would pay additional property taxes to the city. Yeah, there'd be two different tax
Two
rates,
layers
two
of
different
tax.
payments.
So that would raise our tax base, and rather than $18,000 a year in legal and professional fees being on the backs of 300 people, it might be on the backs of 450. And so we're not paying as much individually.
We're not giving,
Captured by whoever put in the mud over 20 or 30 years. They're not profiting off of that.
No.
They're recapturing the investment they made to put that there.
That sounds really good. I like this.
Well, so,
all right. Are there any other council comments?
well, that was snippy.
Ned, did you have something else?
Yes, so my current work is on a 33,000 acre development. I'm doing the energy work, but I'm also involved in how everything else is getting formed. And they are forming many, many muds to do this very thing. So I'm witnessing this firsthand. It's a very expensive process to form a mud. It takes months and months to form a mud. Eventually, the people that live on site are the mud board, and they control that organization. So just know that forming a mud is not something anyone's going to take lightly. And frankly, a developer would show up here, look at this and say, if you can't serve my water and sewer, I'm not going to buy the property. Okay? So that's how you're going to kill this stuff if you're worried about development. But to Susie's point, we can't afford to continue to kill stuff that makes sense. We need tax base here. We've shrunk. This town has shrunk for the last century. So a sewer system alone would bankrupt them. I mean, look, the Canal Station, I mean, just that cost would be massive for 10 homes, massive. So it's not going to happen.
I just, I don't, I have questions about how, if the city has rules about like a drought contingency plan and we're monitoring our water system and following that, the MUD also has their drought contingency plan as well, or do they operate under?
Yeah, MUDs also have to work with all the local water districts,
and
TQ, for surface water. Yeah, they have to follow all those same rules.
So how they do that a lot of times is the mud district or develop a city. They bring in trailers. Those are residents.
They put one trailer
One
on
trailer.
multiple acres.
That's right. And that becomes
So that
the one
person
that
has the boat.
that's right.
The one resident.
Right. So that's how it works. It's a little bit underhanded. We don't need that because we are a city that has an infrastructure that's working. We need to improve it constantly. But I don't think you need a mud district.
The area of the county where they're most concerned right now for the MUDs is Chapel Hill.
Yeah, those are reserves, not a city.
Right, and so the county is really working to fine tune a lot of subdivision stuff and get knowledgeable about MUDs. I know they're working on that.
And MUD's just like any other tool that state local government has. Like it really is just a tool. I don't want to say that MUDs are always bad. Like I've seen MUDs go bad. Because we know how people use the tools. But by no means it's MUD universally happening. Yeah, it really depends on what the local community needs. Sometimes they make perfect sense, sometimes they don't.
Is this just for, like, what about commercial development? I mean, does this address anything like if somebody was gonna come in and wanna put a big something on 15 acres? That's-
Hotel 6.
You know,
That's zoning.
That's zoning.
that's zoning.
So none of this covers that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Not
think,
involved in this. Those
Yeah.
are separate.
yeah, zoning is something totally separate. One of the, The GLO has funding to assist with getting together planning and zoning, but you kind of have to have subdivision things done first before you move into planning and zoning. So we can't even touch that until we do some basic work.
And the reason she knows this is because we had a gentleman come in from the BBCOG, wanted to talk about our zoning and our planning, and when he says, well, I'd like to see your subdivision, what did he say?
So it was John Wong with the Brazos Valley Economic Development. He was so excited to want to talk to me about all the things that they could offer and be a part of here in Burton. And I said, we're still trying to get a water well in the ground. We don't have a subdivision. We don't have planning and zoning. We don't have, and he just kind of sat back in his chair. He's like, well, I'm here too early. I can't help you. And so we were just kind of at a loss because we don't have the tools that we need to be able to move forward on so many other things. So that was a big setback in terms of a lot of things. So running to catch up. So what's next for subdivision? We'll have to do some more consult to address some of these other areas. And to do that, we have to visit with an engineer. Because the engineer would need to do what is it? Stapled it together, bound it up. Yeah. Construction standards. That's not. I'm not willing to go to Carmine and take their construction standards and go, okay. And Fayetteville may have some, and that's great. But I know
They're limited.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Yeah. I know.
Not very, not
So to
anything like that.
have something and have people who are knowledgeable about that to be able to assist us with the rest of this would be helpful. But we're at our limit. Wesley with the county has offered, but Wesley does county. And I said, Wesley, I appreciate the offer, but we kind of need to keep it county and city, because we don't, the ILA. And so I don't know. I don't know how much Wesley is willing to do or put his engineers in on the city of Burton, because they don't do that with the city of Brenham. They don't tell the city of Brenham what to do. I don't think it's right to ask the county to come in and do that for us either. So either way, we have to find outside resources to help finish this off and get the designs, those kinds of things done by people with far more knowledge than what we have here. Which takes us on to item 2. And that is going to be
Karen, I gotta go.
I know you've got another meeting. Yes, thank you for being here. So that's the discussion with AOKA. Angela mentioned at the start, or at some point in time, I think during public comments, because we do get a lot of spam things. You kind of learn to recognize that and move them on. But Angela responded to one, and it was AOKA. And I think even putting out bids sometimes for things, trying to get anything done with our engineers, they put out lists for, they invite so many people to bid, and we get like 3 bids because we're so small. It's so hard to find somebody who's willing to want to come and spend that kind of time and energy with us. So for AOKA to answer Angela's email, yeah, we work with small towns. And when we met with you all, Eli and Rocky, we kind of asked questions about that. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? I mean, we spent, but you also told a lot of stories about places you've been. One of the towns you mentioned was in South Texas with a Dollar General story. I don't remember the name of the town.
It's a little town called Benavides.
Benavides, and it's about how big?
Gosh, I think Benavides is I want to say it's about 1,500 residents. I mean, it's sizable, but they don't have much of anything with regards to ordinances, planning and zoning.
And
Very rural town.
Very little town.
Rural.
More rural than us, because we're on the major highway. So
That's 1137. That's the bottom.
11:37.
Less than 12.
So, so anyway, so what part of the discussion, and I know going all the way back to when David Zychak was mayor, was ordinances. And how do we enforce those ordinances? Who enforces those? Even when the RV ordinance was passed, I think Miss Johnny Pitts, you had problems across the street with somebody living in something or something going on across the street, as I read the minutes. And it took months for the council to respond, because you came back to council every month wanting to know an update on how that problem was being addressed. And I saw what the council finally did was pass a process to be able to enforce an ordinance. And that, do you remember doing that, David? You had to pass a process to be able to address people who weren't following the ordinance. It started with that high neighbor letter, and then there was a process.
I'll respond by saying, no comment.
The ordinance had already been passed.
Yes.
But nobody seemed to have read it except me.
Right.
So I wanted to see council people read it, and then something was done.
Yes, so here, and just pulled a copy out of the council minutes. It's the process we used to address the RV issue that we had earlier. That worked, and it did work. It doesn't always work, but there is a process that the council passed. Jeff, you were a second on it. It was Martin made the first, Jeff was the second, and it passed.
I think it was basically send a letter,
Send a letter and
no response.
send another letter with the
Another
time.
letter with the deadline, and then the next one was a letter from the attorney, and then a call from the attorney. We didn't get that far with this last issue because they should, chosen to work with.
Yes.
And follow the letter.
It ended with the option of going to court, which we would have to have because we don't have a municipal court, it would have to go through JP, the JP's office here, and so we'd have to get an agreement going with them to be able to use them. Otherwise, we would just use, it would be a legal process at that point in time. And so,
I don't have an RV park. So.
we don't, but they are moving that. So that it worked in that position, in that particular, I know where it is, but where it should be,
That's the 26-year-old.
right here. Yes, mail high neighbor, letter explaining the violation, requesting compliance, and enclosing a copy of the ordinance. Step 2, if citizen does not comply within the amount of time specified in the high neighbor, sent by certified mail letter from the city attorney, giving a required number of days to comply per Texas government code, and outlining the consequences if they do not. If there's still no compliance, city attorney will personally call to encourage compliance and warn of next step. Step 4, to those who refuse or chosen not to comply with city ordinances, a citation or complaint will be filed with the municipal court, which we don't have anymore. The city of Burton, issued by the police chief also, and city compliance officer don't have, and city attorney. And so it would fall to the city attorney, and it would have to be filed over in the JP court. But we need an eye on it with that. And so I know ordinance compliance has been an issue. I know that the ordinances need to be reviewed. That is, yes, but we've been working on water and sewer and all the other things. And we have a process outlined, but to have, I lost my train of thought, to have a way or a process for assistance with a lot of that. And Joseph, one of the things when you emailed back, especially with the subdivision ordinance, the reflection on that was that we don't have a building official or somebody to be able to do those inspections. And so it's finding somebody to be able to be that person. And you mentioned for towns a similar size, they contract with a third-party vendor to act as that building official. You know, that the city of Burton's tried a third-party vendor before, and I'm not sure where we are in relationship, if that person is willing to work with the city again or not. I did run into him at a meeting and he was not. But there is, if we do one, we need the other to help with that process. So AOKA, you heard from them 2 weeks ago, and you have that contract. And one of the things that was mentioned tonight is that item was tabled to narrow the scope. And so if you want to look at the scope of services for AOKA and still figure out if this is something that as we go through, I know that Rocky, you mentioned that the services are an as-needed basis, so we would call you if we need you, otherwise you're kind of not here. Only if we need you. And fees and rates are clearly defined in their master service agreement, that they would never perform any work or take action without direction. This is an email that I sent thanking Rocky for being at the meeting, and then his follow-up from the meeting. AOKA will never perform any work or take any action without direction from mayor and or council or the city secretary. I say this because while we have drafted service agreements with less services included, we have often found ourselves having to go back to council for approval when additional services are required. It's not an issue for AOKA, but more for the city staff when the need arises and we cannot immediately address the issue. So let's go through and see where you think we need to narrow a scope for them.
When I first started, I still don't, I know I said we needed to narrow the focus. I still don't understand why we need an agreement. Because like you said last time, if we need your service, we could still get your service. If getting agreement is not gonna get us a 15% discount, or something like that. So I don't understand why we need an agreement at all.
So for me to contract with them separately to even review that subdivision ordinance, it took a week or better.
Yeah.
Almost 2 weeks before we could just come to an agreement on an amount and the scope and the whole thing. And so it's a 2-week turnaround process. So if in, let's say, a situation where we have fire protection plan review and inspection here, and we've got school fire system that needs to be reviewed. I mean, it's, okay, guys, now I need this. I mean, it's an a la carte thing then. I'd have to email, go through that process with them, and a la carte that particular thing with you all. Is that right?
Which you would do anyway, even if you had an agreement.
We would already have does the agreement cost us anything?
No.
So then but then I'd have to contract with them and figure that out as a separate, because it's a different thing.
How is it different?
Well, it's like to have to remember to. Do y'all do a la carte with other cities?
Oh, yes.
You do a la carte.
In terms of, based on the services.
So you have a service based on the service agreement. Do you a la carte without a service agreement?
In some cases we have, depending on the service and depending on the dollar amount, right? There's purchasing laws in place by the state of Texas in terms of what and how, right, a city needs to enter. And so that's typically the issue that comes up if a service is needed on demand and there is no service agreement in place, right? And depending again on that service and on that dollar amount, right? There's only so much we can do as a service provider. And that's not just for AOKA, that's for any service provider.
Right. So that was part of my concern with even contracting them a la carte to review the subdivision ordinance, because that I have a spending limit. I can't go back until, it's like, okay, let me contract with you on a separate thing, but keep it under my spending limit so we can still do this. That just adds layers of complication.
So earlier when I said we can do things a la carte, now that's different, or I guess I'm not understanding what you're saying.
You can, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I wasn't clear. You can contract services a la carte.
Yeah.
Depending on the service type,
Right.
right? And or the dollar amount spent, there's an authority level, right, that the state of Texas has in place. And so depending on that, those limits, right, and again, it depends on the service.
Yeah.
Right? That is where the complication is coming.
Well, so I think the other part of that too is if for some reason it's over your dollar limit, then I really do think that should come to the city council. And there's no hurry. I'm in 3 different projects at works where they're building imaging centers. It's months of everything. So no one's gonna come out and say, we need a fire protection plan tomorrow or next week even. So I don't, once again, I don't think it's necessarily, there's no advantage.
I think there may also be a bit of miscommunication, because for example, so you wouldn't do permit review for them on an ongoing monthly basis without an agreement.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I think it was talking about, as far as like a la carte, is if you had a big specific project that you wanted to contract separately about,
Yeah.
they're willing to do it. But if you're wanting to hire them to do all your permit reviews or plat reviews each month, they're not going to do that without an actual agreement.
So, but like last month, we paid you $680. So if we were to say, hey, we needed 6 more hours, you wouldn't do that?
Yes, I mean, we could provide that service.
Okay, so am I still misunderstanding then? If we asked you once a month, we're gonna give you $680 and we need you to review this, and this, you would say yes to that.
Depending on the service, that we could, right, within our
Yeah.
authority, yes.
Yeah.
Right, but as the city attorney noted, right, we would then, depending on the service and the type, would have to come back to council every month to get that approved.
Oh,
Right.
because of the dollar limit.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But with the service agreement in place, you're authorizing us, right, to perform those services on an as-needed basis.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and then typically the way it works at that point is that they'll put in their invoice for that month, and they'll go to council at your next session for you to approve the city making that payment. So you still get to look at it.
So
Remember
that payment-
Prior to the expense being.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Well,
going with
once
that.
the agreement, that's the advantage of entering the agreement, because then once you have the agreement in place, it'll be just like my bills, where you get the invoice at the end of the month, and then the city can see that, and it's like, hey, make sure are these charges correct? Okay, yeah, we go ahead and pay it. Oh no, actually, there's an overpayment or overcharge or something wrong.
Well, but we weren't approving, because my concern, yes, I think there's 28 ordinances, or I did a little table count, but there's a lot, and there's a lot to fix.
A lot of those
Yeah.
are probably ineffective at this time because they're so old.
Sure.
So I think if I use the word, if we think of a service agreement with them is no different than our service agreement with our on-call engineers. Right, because we approved that, not to, with GovCo and with, with Strand to be
yeah.
on-call engineer. If we need your services, then you're our on-call engineer. And that's what this basically boils down to, except they have a published fee schedule, whereas we don't know until the engineer bills with the on-call
I
engineers.
guess my concern is having the agreement, that makes more sense than I appreciate it. Is there, like the $680 for that review, I'm not saying it didn't need to be done, but I'm afraid that there's just gonna be a snowball of charges and a lot of money spent, like the subdivision ordinance. Your firm has seen it 3 times, 4 times now?
Very different subdivision ordinance, but yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but you reviewed it a few times. Now you guys have reviewed it, we're still talking about it. It's,
2 engineering firms.
yeah, engineering firm. That's a lot of money.
Those engineering firms, it was on the last one, we haven't had a different engineering firm look at this one. So, This is the, so the, just to have them on call to take care of these things. Now, if it is and comes to, because we have a published schedule of what this is gonna be, that it's gonna cost, well over the spending limit to have them,
What is the
whatever,
spending limit?
1,000. So, I think these two would work hand in hand, the subdivision ordinance and the AOKA engineering firm, to be able to, when we need them, we have a firm on hand to be able to take care of review of anything being brought to council. And we would know what our fee schedule is, the people bringing their plat would know what that fee schedule is. And we would just have somebody right there on the ready for something like that, even as we move through. In terms of ordinance review, that's something AOKA does as well. If we have questions. Now, the normal, I'm gonna ask Angela, can you share the normal way we go about finding ordinances? I mean, we can contact city attorneys as one option.
Steal them from other cities.
That's the way it happens. And
I would
so,
recommend it, that's.
Well, I mean,
the
the
way it
first
is.
subdivision ordinance was put together by a hodgepodge of different things.
well, it was, the first one we looked at was Snook. The second one was a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
This third one is Carnegie. And so, it's, but that's the way it works. Now, whether or not it's all legal, because laws change and we're stealing from other, cities hoping that theirs are legal and we don't know. And so to have a way to have, even if we do steal one, modify it, that we can send it and say, hey, can you check and make sure this is all like the real deal? Y'all do that a lot, do you? So to have them to check it and say, no, that's not the way it's done anymore. I think, Rocky, when you left here last week, about 2 weeks ago, you said you were on your way to someplace with a lot of trees because they were still charging building permits by the appraised value and not by the square foot. And and so it was get them back into compliance because they knew that the rules, the state law had changed. So I think it's just helpful to have the two work hand in hand and just think of them as engineers for things that we might need, so that the next time we need fire service reviewed, and we still do, to send it to them to have that reviewed.
Can I answer a question? Okay, I don't know anything about a fall, whatever, but when my mother-in-law place burned down, these people would be the one that would come out and check it.
That's a fire marshal.
Great, I know, because we came from us.
We, ma'am, if I may, we would come out and make sure that the construction is built right from the beginning, from the ground up.
It's gone now.
Somebody else will.
So council, just because I'm one of the poorest residents in town, and I know several other senior citizens who are on a fixed income, it concerns the poor people that right now our legal and professional fees are $18,000 a year. I would like to see that not all of the ordinances be fixed immediately. This is not a church that needs to be righted immediately so a new pastor can come in. If we have 28 ordinances and they're all a little bit flawed, let's work on them over the next 15 years. I love these city council people, but they've got family members who are ill, they've got jobs, they've got personal issues, and I would love to see the ordinances fixed, but could it be fixed over the next 15 years and not a rate of 3 a month or something like that? Because I care about you, and I also care about keeping the expenses down. This is the highest line item of legal and professional fees that we've had in years, and that's 12.5% of our property taxes.
So, Angela, what if we spent legal fees on this in 2025?
The lift station easement
So the Canoodle lift station easement was
about 5,000.
It was longer than that. It was more than that, way more than that. So a lot of what we've spent legal fees on in 2025, one of those was the Canoodle lift station. That was an easement that should have been signed 35 and 40 years ago. we had to have an easement agreement in order for our grant money to work. We
Cover the
were,
rehabilitation.
right. Otherwise, we would have lost all of it and would not have been able to rehab that lift station.
Yeah, that
Well,
was the
that's exactly
situation.
my point. Life happens. When we run a household, we know something's gonna break down. I prefer to live within our means. That's all I'm asking.
So that's where a good chunk of money was to fix a problem 35 and 40 years old. Another issue we had was water lines in the ETJ that were hooked up
Not quite, not sure yet.
without agreements. It was all under the table hook up to the city infrastructure. We had no easement agreements. We had TechStop coming in to clip the lines, and we had to do a lot of legal consult around that. That was another big project, and those lines went in the late 80s. So a lot of what we're spending legal fees or had spent legal fees on was to fix problems that were 35 and 40 years old. We haven't moved forward on much of anything since the failure of the subdivision ordinance in February. He reviewed it in the fall, he reviewed it, but that was one review of the Carmine ordinance that was brought from that committee. But most of the legal fees were from fixing things in the past.
And I'm so grateful for all of that. I'm just saying, if it's a rocky year when we've spent a fortune on all this other stuff, let's slow down the subdivision ordinance until next year when we've got more slush funding. This is really painful financially for us.
Well, I think we're making a lot of great headway with the subdivision ordinance. Like Nina said several times, it's taken forever, and it could take some more time, obviously. But I want to look at the ordinances, but I agree. I think we maybe one at a time. But there are things. We have a lot of work to do with what we have right now. So nothing. I don't want to speak for the council, but I feel that there should not be a whole lot of other ordinances looked at this point until we need to make some decisions and get done with this.
The committee spent a lot of time on this ordinance.
Yeah.
A lot of time going through other cities' ordinances and trying to compile them into a simpler one that would definitely do what we need, but not be so complicated. So that's why we came up with this. And there's a lot of time spent on this already.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so these two things are kind of partners. Again, the land division, subdivision ordinance, and then to have a method to be able to have a group of on-call engineers to come in and take care of looking at these plans. Right. In the event we need that, then they're there and on call, because otherwise we run into situations no different than when the school brought plans in for this last renovation. How did that work? Because I was not sitting at this table. Who was at the table when the school district brought their plans in? Okay, how did that work? But okay, can you tell us more about how that process worked?
Well, the process worked fine as far as bringing all the plans in. They did not, there were certain things that were supposed to be done first, I thought. The water system, the flush toilets, less water being used with the toilets, that was never even addressed except for the one time they brought the plans in. It went to, we know it went to a lot of expenses that were, now we've got to find out where the money went to, but also we had the track and we had the football stadium and everything went first.
Right.
I thought it was going to be the other way around, but I was wrong.
So I know when the bond was brought forward, I was in the room when Dale Schwartz asked, how is our water and sewer system going to be able to handle what you're about to do? And we were just kind of blown off as residents. And then to hear that when they brought him in, the plans before you all, it was, well, they're going to put in low flush toilets.
Right.
That doesn't
change.
Nothing should change. That doesn't mean that they're taking care of their side of the meter for them, but who's looking over the infrastructure on our side of the meter? Who do we have on call? Who can we even call about that? And so to have even the school drop off the plans and us say, let us send them on to an engineer because we need to see what's going to happen here so we know how it's going to impact there. It would be helpful. And we are gonna have more issues with, because in 2008, they tied stormwater to wastewater, and that's been a problem. So we're gonna have more issues there. I think just having another group of on-call engineers that we can say, we got another thing going on over here, need your help with that. I think, can we look at the scope of services and kind of see what would be helpful for us and what maybe we're not there yet because we're just not there. So if you look at page 5, the building plan review, and I'm looking at the bottom, the project manager, and this is the bullets under the building plan review. The project manager will review the plan check report to ensure quality. The city will be notified by email as soon as the plan exam and quality review is completed. The city will be able to access the plan check reports prepared by the plans examiner, which can be distributed to the permit applicant. Transparency is key. Somebody's going to review something. Building inspection. 4th bullet down. Provide the city with necessary information to determine what inspections are required for a given application. And I'm skipping down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maintain specific records of completed inspections and inspection reports, in real time. And then the next one, assist in compliant investigations, hazardous building inspections, and assist the city in prosecuting violations. Hello. Dangerous buildings have been an issue for us, but we have no way to get to do that because you have to have a administrative warrant, is that right? To be able to go on that property, to be able to do the building inspections. And so we would have a way to do dangerous building inspections. You go to page 6, virtual inspections.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
So building, what do we mean building? What is building?
Structural.
Any structure?
Your electrical, your mechanical, your plumbing, the basic structure components.
So the next page is those virtual inspections, and you all gave an example of when you use those. That's not a full-time thing that you all do,
Correct.
but you gave examples of you just left and you got a call that. Can you share that story?
For instance, if we have like an electrical meter that needs to be replaced I actually had one in one of my cities where over the weekend with this cold, they had to replace gas meters. Well, that needs to be permitted, inspected. We talked to the fire chief. I gave him a blessing to go ahead and let him inspect it, make sure that the system is safe before releasing it to the utility company so they could come out and place the meter. So that the homeowners could then have heat throughout the week.
Right. So even when you can't get there, you're able to
Right,
be
yeah,
there.
we can actually have, like for instance, in that one, we'd have called the plumber and told him, hey, do me a favor, put it on test, let me know when it's on test. I would have sent him a link that would automatically allow me to get on the phone with him on the other side. I do the inspection, or my inspectors do the inspection as to what is necessary to make sure the system is safe. We pass it, we move on, we send it to the utility company, and that customer has gas that day, and they're able to stay warm. Same thing with electrical meters, any emergency that needs to happen right then and there. And contractors, believe it or not, prefer it because that allows them to not have to wait until the next business day to come in and pull permits and things like that.
Susan,
Can I ask a question? Because I've gone through everything in terms of the fee schedule. So I'm just curious because, for instance, like I mentioned earlier that I talked to Cardine and Fayetteville and they both have their building codes and their fee schedule and everything adopted. Like, what does it cost if somebody needs to replace a water meter or put a new electric meter or do any kind of electrical stuff, and that's all broken out. But y'all's is the only thing I can really find is like your trade, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fuel and gas trade inspection fee of $90 per trade. So for an example like that, for instance, if something like that happened in the city of Burton, what would that look like for a residential customer to pay? Like, we don't have natural gas, so that's not applicable, but say a water meter or they got to replace an electric panel.
City does water meter.
Sure, but what I'm saying is a water heater, I meant to say, a water heater, because that's how specific like they are. They're down to like the nitty gritty,
Right.
which is what, we worry about in a town of 295.
No, and that's a fair and valid point, right? Typically what we do when we go in is we'll do a fee analysis that matches your ordinances, right, and your fee structure.
So you do that after you sign the agreement?
Yeah.
Or before?
Well, again, right, let me reiterate.
Okay,
Typically the city will have that in place, right?
right, but if they don't?
Burton doesn't have anything in place, so we have to have a standard. And our standard is our master fee schedule.
Okay, but if the master fee schedule does not have it, like I said, breaking it down in terms of those specifics and what those items look like in cost, you just go and you prepare that before you sign an agreement with the
Right, I
city
mean,
in
there's certain
terms of.
things that
Well, but
you're
there's
gonna
not, I
follow
mean-
in the standard.
Right, but it's not specified
Yeah,
in
when
terms
the,
of
when the
those
whole thing would
things.
go up to council, the fee schedule would be updated and included in that.
Right, but I mean, if it doesn't include any of those items, is what I'm saying.
Right. Again, right, every city's a little bit different. You have some cities that are very, very detailed and have every single service line item down.
Sure.
We just provided a standard, right? I could probably publish a 20-page fee schedule on top of that includes, right? It's more all-inclusive. I mean, we do have something like that for 2026. The one that I proposed to you was back in 2025. So again, right?
But could I offer an example? It's just a question. On some of these small towns, like, well, less than 1,100 preferably, if you can think of one. I think I found one online, but I can't remember what starts with a B, but I think it was closer to us in terms of size. So for instance, like on building permit fees, this is from Fayetteville, city of Fayetteville. For instance, if somebody needed to replace an electric panel, it's $20. A reconnect, $15. A rewire, $75. Are those numbers in line with anything that y'all charge in terms of those services for towns our size?
Again, right?
Or we
if I
build it
have-
to fit based on what the city would approve?
Yes,
Is that-
basically, on that agreement, yes, ma'am. Right, now, if those fees had already been adopted by the city,
Sure.
we would do a fee analysis and match where we could. And then tell you exactly where our services cost as opposed to your fees, and then cities have the option to either adopt our fees.
Or
right?
choose their own?
Or choose their own, right? And could choose our service if they want, or could choose not to use us or utilize our services for that particular line item. That's typically how it works.
So
right?
the main part to remember for the citizens is currently we don't have any ordinances that require you to do any of that.
Correct.
Well, you were obligated to follow the building code,
Right.
IBC IRC of 2015.
Right.
That's what, and you're obligated, you or your contractor, to follow that. So we do follow a building code,
Right.
we just don't have somebody issuing permits
Right.
or enforcement.
When I built my house, I brought all my plans down to City Hall. When I put the carport up, I brought everything to City Hall. I conferred with them on everything. My issue right now, and I know we're talking about new subdivisions, is this company going to be only for new building? Or we grandfathered in, those of us that have lived here for years? I mean, is he gonna come on my property and look at my house and tell me?
No.
That's not the way it works.
Okay, but if I put something on my property, he will come on there, is that correct?
No, currently no, because there's
Well,
no
currently,
ordinance.
Yes, but
Yeah.
if you use them, Jeff, then yes, right?
Well, no, because there would have to be an ordinance that would allow him to do
Exactly.
that. Currently, the city of Burton does not have that ordinance or anything like that.
But that's inevitable if you pass this. Right. So I think Susan's onto something, and that is it might be helpful to go through an example of someone building a new home and how their fees apply. So I know there's, just say 1,000 square foot house, which is in the small category.
So Permian
So
does, for new
700
construction, it's
It's $700 for
40
them.
cents per,
It's $700 up front, as I recall, or $760 or something like that.
$7.77.
Is that inclusive of all the trades, or if you do electrical, that's another $90, or how does that
Right
work?
here,
Yeah,
if you want
How
to check my
does that
math.
work?
Yep,
The
that's
90.
inclusive of all, it's the plan reviews for that particular home, plus all inspections. So that includes any plan review rechecks, right? We don't tag the city for a second, a third, a fourth plan review, right? Based on something that may have been missed or omitted,
Changes or whatever.
right? And then we also don't charge the city for re-inspections, right? It's all inclusive.
So the trade fees then, for instance, are inclusive in that $7.77 on a residential, which
The only
is,
time the trade fees really apply is if, again, right, we weren't part of the project from the outset, and you had plumbing going into an addition, right? You had electrical panel going into an addition, right, or renovation, remodel of some sort, right? That's when the actual trade inspection fees would apply on an individual basis.
But this doesn't
include like DIY. So my hot water heater goes out, my husband's gonna go and replace
We
it.
don't have, yeah, we don't have an ordinance.
It's
So as an example, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have.
We don't have an ordinance currently in
I mean,
Burton.
but the one you're looking at.
No, this is just an agreement.
But they still have to follow the code. That Mike still has to follow the IBC IRC code,
Right.
building code,
Right.
whether he's a homeowner or whether he's a contractor coming into the
Okay,
place.
that's what I'm just
the
asking,
property.
so would it be a permit, would he have to get a fee and
No.
pay it? Okay.
So not
Sounds
now.
Like the DIYs, not now, but I mean, if we go into this agreement, would that also?
Yes.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so
Well, say a
that's-
bill in Carmine, you would. You for a water meter, for an electric panel, that's what I'm saying.
No, but
Anytime
we-
you modify
But if we
something.
adopt an ordinance,
We would
Exactly.
have to adopt an ordinance
Right,
to.
right.
and
But the
have
question that
something
Melinda, I think, has is if that scenario was in play, she has to replace a water heater, does she have to come down and pay a permit to have that replaced? And in most
Does she have-
cities, yes.
Does she have to have a
Correct.
licensed trade to do it?
Well,
Yeah.
not
And they have to come
necessarily,
inspect
because
it.
Fayetteville does still have the language in the building code that says you can do your own modifications and alterations, you follow the code, you pay the permits. So it's up to each city to decide how that looks.
That particular item, ma'am, is actually state law that allows any homestead exempt owner to do any electrical or plumbing. As long as
So
we can prove
Carmine
it.
doesn't allow it, but Fayetteville does.
But that's the state law, right? That's the state law.
In the code, so.
And so we would have to create, the city council would
Yeah.
have to create some type of ordinance to it.
I just thought it was important to clear it up, because it was like murky
hasn't
there.
been communicated.
So, back to the scope of services in 6. A lot of that is public works, civil plan review and inspection. That would be that retention pond, and I would hope you would ding anybody with just a hole in the ground with a boardwalk around it and no fence and no way to climb out of it, please. The sanitary sewers, drainage, all of that. And so even not that I don't trust our A&M students and they're working and what they're gonna bring to us when they find what they find, but it'd be nice to have somebody with a certificate, an engineer certificate, then to look at it and go, okay, yeah, this is what needs to be done, and I'm not sure. But anyway, that would be part of that process. Fire protection plan review, that's for the school district, so that would be, we could work with AOKA to get that done. There's certified training services, so my understanding is that when we're ready, when we're a town of 5,000 and we wanna hire our own, we can send them to training, and y'all would take care of that, and then y'all would be like, oh good, I don't have to do Burton anymore. Health inspection services is not something we would use. That is presently done by the state out here. The county doesn't have health inspection. City of Brenham, they all rely on the state out here. So even that document agreement, ILA, we had to get rid of because that is not something that happens. Public pools and spas, however, if Burton decided to put in a public pool, then maybe we would contact them to come and take a look at the pool and make sure it's safe. Emergency response and preparedness services. I like that that's there so that if we have need, and specifically a very fast, the Belleville and the hailstorm in Belleville, we're there for them and able to get really quick on the draw with getting some system together so that people had to come to City Hall to get a license to go out and knock on doors at homes. I'd like to have that and access to that without having to go through a file and figuring that out. Or in 5 years, whoever sits at the table going, what, didn't we talk about somebody? And trying to figure out who that was. Facility assessments, again, that's also hazardous buildings, is that right? For aging or existing structures. Code enforcement services and training. So again, it's us working on our stuff, sending it to somebody with more knowledge to review that. Maybe cheaper than the lawyer, I don't know. I haven't compared side by side. Okay. They usually are, huh? Yeah. And training. And so when we're at that point of a town of 5,000, they could train and then they're done. We don't have to go to work anymore for that. Planning and zoning services, also we're not there because you've got to get that subdivision thing first. On-site sewage facility services. So this is not something we have in Burton because everybody's required to hook up to wastewater. We do have some that are grandfathered in, but we'll have to start looking at that and addressing that. As property maybe changes hands, is a good time to do that. I don't know, but we do have some in town. And then we have some that are here illegally, but it would be nice to have them all inspected. Now, technically, the county is that inspection service for us, but it would be getting on their list of all the things that they're doing with all the other ones, all the houses, new builds coming in. But this would be another way to check out our on-site sewage facilities here in town. Certified building official services, that would just be assistance, I believe. Code guidance, process improvements, policy updates.
I got a question about the planning and zoning services. Okay, that's a very important thing, but it's not related to this ordinance that we're dealing with. So how does that relate to something if we decided to approve a subdivision ordinance? Does the zoning go on top of that, or how does that work? In other words, we have something in place. Okay, the zoning, how does that join with the thing we already brought in place, or does that conflict with it?
No, typically they work together hand in hand, but you've got to have one before the other. Okay. Right? You have your ordinance in place. And then the planning and zoning, right, is making sure that that ordinance is effective.
Thank you.
So does that make sense to reframe them and think of them as just engineers on call for when we need these services? That we don't have to keep shopping, that they're on the buy board, they're
How often do you reschedule your fees? I mean, every year you go through them?
Typically, we review them every year, right? Our fees have remained flat over the last 2 years.
Okay. But they are reviewed every
They
year?
are reviewed, yes, sir. That is true. So yes, we have not subjected any of our customers to a fee increase. Now, that doesn't preclude, and I just want to be clear, that doesn't preclude a city from increasing their fees, right? So cities have increased their fees, our fees remain constant.
right. So I think Angela mentioned we would have tack on like 5%. So what you see plus 5% for city administrative things.
So cities, a lot of times will do some type of comparative analysis with neighboring cities. And so they want to be on even keel, right, with cities around them. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to come back to you and say, well, you raised your fees, we'll raise ours. No, our fees remain flat.
Does your fees have travel charges for that?
It depends on the service. It just depends on the service, right? Typically, that service will be if you needed our certified planner here at a meeting for planning and zoning. That would involve the hourly rate plus his travel expense, right? If you needed a building official here on demand to attend a city council meeting or to attend a planning and zoning meeting, or a committee meeting, something to that effect, that typically would be an hourly rate plus a travel charge. To have Eli, who's a certified building official, come by as part of his scope of work, right, part of the service that we provide, there's no travel fees incurred with that. But if you said, Eli, I need you here specifically after hours to attend this meeting, then typically that's what the travel costs would be.
Did you get you to come today?
No. We're not contracted.
Sure.
We don't have contracts.
We're not contracted.
It's good to know that they're only gonna come out when city call. Now, I just wanted to ask just a philosophical question. We have neighbors who live in houses that are unhealthy, they're unsafe. They also don't have the money to get them to do the repairs, nor do they have the money to pay the fines. What is the goal of the city? Go ahead and let them age out, die, and then start afresh with the new owners? Or actually force them out of town for living in unsafe dwellings? I'm just curious, what is the goal? Because there's neighbors who will never pass muster with inspections.
So ideally, we would start with the Brazos Valley Council of Governments because they have programs there to assist. So if we need that, we could connect them up and talk about the weatherization, put them on the wait list, whatever it takes. we want to keep our residents in their homes.
Okay, I mean, I was just curious, what is the end game here, so.
I will say legally, a lot of like, so say for example, this subdivision ordinance was passed, it wouldn't retroactively apply to all these properties. Now, if those properties that are already built want to do additions or they remodel, something like that, then at that point, the new rules would kick in. But if you have an older house that's just already sitting there, already built, already complete, there's no changes there. The only thing that would come up, that would be a completely different law. That would be there's like a dangerous building laws, where if a building deteriorates so much that it becomes a nuisance, becomes unsafe, then there are certain parameters. But that's completely separate from the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, and we have a lot that are uninhabited, and I think everybody in this room would love to see those either, fixed up or demolished. The historical ones fixed up for sure, but it's the ones that have residents in them that really I'm concerned about what the end game is.
And so, too, though, we would have to have some type of ordinance that would address that before or something.
Yeah, for like that, I like there's a bunch of steps you have to go through. There's a local, you can create a dangerous building commission, a local commission, or there's also state laws you can do instead if you didn't want to pass a bunch of ordinances.
Right.
But then the state law, you have to go through a district court.
Sure.
So there's a couple of different avenues you want to go to. Now, yeah, but that's completely separate from this topic. But yes, sir.
Yeah, but ideally, Susie, and if you have a list of people and houses that they're in agreement, they want to work with somebody on that, then we can find programs and help connect them. We know through Burton Bridge Ministry where those programs are. And, but we can work and figure out who they are and how to get them resourced correctly.
And Mayor,
I'm at the COG once a month for a meeting, and one of the boards I'm on is part of that oversight. All I need is the names, addresses, and their agreement that they want to be on that list.
if I may add, Mayor, just one of the questions that we typically ask from community members is, hey, when AOKA comes in, do y'all go around looking for code enforcement items to write people up on? No. We do not drive around looking for items that are out of compliance to write people up. We help the people that call us.
What if somebody does call? Like,
Well,
what if you have a disgruntled
they
neighbor?
need to call the city first.
Correct.
Right? That's where you start. You call the city first. And then we have a process lined out of what we do and try to get it addressed as best as possible. We'll have to modify that. If we have some people who can inspect, then we can modify the process if need be. But you have to call the city first. Any other questions? Are you ready to take this off the table, put it back on the agenda to continue to talk about in 2 weeks? All right, couple of announcements. I need to check time. Okay, so a couple of announcements. The next city council meeting is Tuesday, February 10th at 5:30. I have also before council request from the grant writer Joy Fox for Burton Friends and Neighbors. They're applying for a grant again with the LCRA. This grant is a little more because they already got the covers on the fields. This is for a lighting system at the ball fields to change it to a more energy efficient, cost efficient LED lighting system. It's the same letter with some verbiage changed that you signed in July. If you could sign off here at the bottom that you're in agreement with that, we'll get that in. Joy will pick it up tomorrow. It's due the 31st. So if you could sign that. Along that line, no, I'm going to let the news report the news. But there is some exciting news that you'll hear about on the radio tomorrow connected to Burton Friends and Neighbors. Also, Texas Target Communities update. I do want to give that to you at the last council meeting. I just knew that they were coming. Last week, I had a phone call or an email with one of the professors. And I said, okay, so about how many students should we expect? Because, in the biological agricultural engineering class, we got 4, right? So I'm like, okay, so how many should we expect? 43 plus 6 more. So we're going to have 50 students plus professors here in town on February the 9th. So I'm excited about that. They have an itinerary. I've made my phone calls about what they set their agenda. And so they'll be here on the 9th. What the scope of the classes, they'll come in on the 9th. They'll gather their information. If they need to do follow-ups, they do that on their own. In March, they're going to schedule a time to meet with the community. They're going to make their presentations to the community. So I'll reserve the American Legion Hall for that so that they can come in and make those presentations. And then they go back, they tweak their presentations, and then they have their final here in town. We thought it was on campus, but the biological students weren't. Those engineering students are on campus. Urban planning actually does their final here in town, and they'll do that presentation for us as their final in April. So 50 students are about to be let loose here in town. We got 43 out of the urban planning class, and then another about half dozen in transportation. And I got a call from a resident yesterday who informed me that her grandson is one of the students coming out to look town over, and so it's pretty exciting. That's going on as well. But we'll keep you posted. But they will be all over town on February the 9th, but we'll let you know. But they're doing urban planning things, and they will be on the south side. And we'll give you a time if you want to be there. They're going to be over there. That's primary for them. They're going to be over there.
I'll be there, but
Okay.
just roll.
They're going to. Chris is going to meet them over at Matson Park. Chris is going to meet them.
He's good.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's it. Angela, do you want to share?
I just would like council to stay for just a few minutes after we adjourn.
Okay. All right. I want to thank our guests tonight. Thank you for making the trip, Rocky and Eli. So appreciate that. And Joseph, thank you for being here with us. It was nice to have you right there to be able to resource in and ask questions, because otherwise we kind of sit going. But it is nice to have you all. Thank you all for attending the council workshop. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you.